Boston?
Yeah, because I managed their SOCs.
Yeah.
And so I was back and forth. But my team, for the ASC, they were everywhere. Everywhere. That was a long time ago.
All right, here we go. All right, go. All right, welcome to Security Guy Radio, SecurityGuyTV.com at Black Hat 2017 Las Vegas with Ms. Charisse, CyberTripTheGun.com, and Mr. Justin Harvey. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
It's been 1 year.
One of my favorite interviews last year. And look at all this fancy gear I got because of our big success at Black Hat last year. Now, you're with a company called?
Accenture Security.
And is it AccentureSecurity.com?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And what do you guys do?
We are a consulting company. Actually, Accenture is the world's largest publicly traded consulting company, over 400,000 employees
yeah, they're pretty
worldwide.
I mean, bigger than Deloitte and those kind of guys?
Yep. Actually, those aren't publicly traded. So.
Okay, but.
Yep. And Accenture Security, if you were to take all of the business that we have and all of the employees, we're the third largest security company in the world.
Right here on
5,000 employees.
Right here on Little Bitty SecurityGuy.TV. We have it's fabulous. Well, what do you guys do? Consulting's a big word.
It is. So really our bread and butter not only is security, but digital transformation, helping companies get to the cloud, business transformation, business process outsourcing.
And then security embedded in all of those activities.
Exactly. It
and
is
so what are you doing for them now?
So I run a team called the Blue Team, and inside of the Fusion X acquisition. And many people probably remember Fusion X as one of the pioneers in innovating red teaming, so adversary simulation.
Okay.
So that's the red team, and I run the Blue Team, which is the incident response, threat hunting, and SOC and IR build and assessment programs.
And is this where you go into organizations and run exercises in a simulated manner to test their response plans, activities?
Exactly. So we've been pioneering what we call purple team engagements. And purple team engagements is where our red team performs a hyper-realistic simulation. So they're actually, they're actually attacking, they're actually hacking in.
On the live infrastructure.
On the live infrastructure. I mean, clearly we're not doing denial of service attacks and we're not sending out hundreds of phishing attacks. This is really tailored for the organization. It's adversary appropriate, so we're not going to simulate a nation state attacking a bank, for instance, unless that bank is maybe they do a lot of international.
So what does the purple team do? I'm interested.
All right, so the purple team is when we have the red team attacking, and our blue team, my team, actually sits with the SOC and the incident response team, and we do three things. We observe, we coach, and we recommend. So that way, that's really falls into the sweet spot of helping organizations, global companies, prepare for the worst case scenario. Because there's tabletops. Everyone can do a tabletop. You can sit down and you can
go through the motions.
Right, like I was gonna say in old school Dungeons and Dragons fashion, roll the dice and figure out what the next move is. But everyone knows that it's a tabletop. Everyone comes into the room, they're like, we're going to simulate this, but this is actually simulating an active adversary compromise, and that's really helps in a sparring partner fashion for these organizations.
Absolutely. Train as you fight as you train.
Exactly. Yep. We use that same saying, and the other one is helping our clients develop a warrior or hunter mindset, because it really is, not to use overly used terms, but it really is a cyber war. We have to adopt more of a defensive mindset rather than saying, I think for the last 15, 20 years, everyone's been focused on compliance. But really, I think over the last 5-10 years, we're really moving toward a battlefield type of analogy.
So I'm from the physical security world, who happens to know a lot about computers, and I've never seen this approach in understanding that this is a real war, because physical people see these things that way.
Because it's tangible.
We're tangible. That guy's getting in the door. That's physical. You're trying to breach my perimeter. That's all physical. And I'm glad to see cyber people are looking at it that way, because when we look at coding, we look at people writing code and they put security on top of it afterwards. I go, what? Physical security guy wouldn't do that, right?
Right.
I put the lock in before I put the door in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
it's a good analogy.
Exactly, right? But it's backwards in cyber.
Yeah.
It's getting better, right? So when somebody hires you to come in, I think it's all like, blind things and blind attacks, and do you actually do the simulation and the attacks for them, or are you just letting them do their own and you're observing in consulting?
Well, actually, that's a great question, because we have both models. We have one model where we work with our clients and their own red team participates and does the attack. But I would say that's that is more like a 10 to 20% of our clients. Most of them want the full purple team engagement.
And I was going to ask, are the clients that are doing these assessments and exercises, are they going full throttle with the hybrid, or are they starting where they're crawling and maybe doing the tabletop and then graduating to a hybrid and then graduating to the red team? What are you seeing in the industry? Are companies just saying just all out?
Also a great question. It's almost like
we have great questions here on Scooter Guy TV.
I couldn't have. These would be the exact same questions I'd seed you guys with. I'm seeing two different types of companies. The first is the company that realizes that their security operations team and their incident response team isn't up to snuff. So doing a red team or an adversary simulation on them is not fair, because you're just going to run over them.
Sense.
So I would say that 80%, these are Justin Harvey, pull off the top of my mind stats, I'd say about 80% are the other kind. The other kind is you're running a threat hunt and you're helping enhance their security operations.
Getting them to a baseline.
Right. Get them to the baseline, get the SOC and IR trained, ready to go, and then...
And in some cases, build their policy procedures if they're lacking.
Correct. I think that we are also doing some innovation around moving from incident response plans. I characterize it as, for the last 10 years, everyone's been running out and doing an incident response plan. And it's a break glass in case of fire. You go through, you document everything, you put it on the shelf, and it collects dust. And then when WannaCry or NotPetya comes out, people pull it off the shelf and they're like, holy crap, this hasn't been updated in 5 years. What are we going to do? And so I think that where we're going is we're building more crisis management plans. An incident response plan is something, you should be living incidents every day. It's called a continuous response model. You're always, nothing should really freak you out or cause you to hit that red panic button unless it's really big. And then that's where crisis management plans come over. Crisis management plans cover out-of-band communications, because what's going to happen if your voice over IP network is dead? What's going to happen when your email and your GAL, the global address list, doesn't work? What was the marketing PR person, or how do we call so-and-so?
Where's legal?
Exactly. So helping out-of-band communications, and then also developing all of the necessary processes and procedures to sustain that during a crisis.
So I have another question. You mentioned innovation, and in this space we're talking incident response, preparing organizations through simulated activities. Traditionally, it's been very, what I would consider a manual process. You have boots on the ground in the organization, running manual tests. Do you see technologies emerging that are trying to automate through a platform incident response, where it takes away the human aspect of, like, let's say, your teams? And what are your thoughts on that?
The world has to pivot to this now.
Okay.
There is simply not enough people in the world that are properly trained on cyber defense, incident response, security operations, whether it be in a small town in Georgia or whether it be New York City. Companies just can't staff their security operations center with enough people. Yes, it's huge. We've been talking about this for years. So there have been technical solutions to kind of address that. We can increase the efficacy of finding these threats, but then what do you do with that? So the only solution, well, I hate talking in absolutes. Really, there's two ways you can go to fix this. The first is managed services. So picking a good managed services provider to help you, to offload a lot of the event monitoring and a little bit of incident management, and also automation. Because if you can automate a lot of the rote processes, a lot of the rote things, repetitive tasks that your lower level SOC people are doing, you can then enable the higher level people that you're paying all your money to.
And what about automating the actual incident response training and planning? Because there's so many, it's a multifaceted domain where you have your red teams, your blue teams, your purple teams, your green teams. How do you kind of reduce the human aspect and automate that so that more companies can have access to it?
That's, I think that's one of the areas that there's been a lot of investment in. I think the jury's still out on that, but I still think that the key here is outsource where you can, and automate the repetitive task. And to give you an example of that is, let's say in the old world, or in the mode that a lot of companies are operating in today, you have a new alert that comes in. Well, the level 1 analyst has to then take the alert, figure out what it is, go to the endpoint, pull some data out, analyze it, and then provide it up to a higher tier. Well, you can automate that whole workflow so that you're providing essentially a dashboard or more of a heads-up display for your higher tiered resources.
Justin Harvey, Accenture, Accenture.com, AccentureSecurity.com.
Right.
I'm tired. I have a lot of things to do. Spell the website for me, for my nieces and nephews.
AccentureE.com.
What keeps you up at night, real quick?
Destructive attacks. Same as last year. I think you asked me that last year.
I think I did, yeah.
And
Attacks,
if you remember last year, it was, what is the theme? And I said the next year is going to be ransomware and destructive
and you were correct.
attacks. And yep. And I guess the next year, is going to be much of the same.
Thanks for coming on Security Guy Radio, Security Guy
Thanks very
TV.
much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Always glad to see you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Glad to be here. Great questions. Great question. That was great.
Excellent.
That's why we don't do it ahead of time, because your brain would kind of be waiting, you know.
Yeah.
But what you say generates a question. Yep. That's logical, right? You got to know that. Excellent.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Did I give you my name card? Yes.
You have one all day.
Good deal, man. Good question.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, you heard it.
Yeah, so we're doing the same thing. We believe that, so we're building, automating the entire audit process for like different sponsors for different industries. It's like, you can't scale that. You need your smart people working on this stuff.
I know.
Automate the stuff that
Yeah.
can be done.
Exactly.
Very cool.